What if I told you the most shocking WWE debut in years wasn't from a trained wrestler, but the daughter of a Hollywood action star? Raina Seagull, Steven Seagal's daughter, didn't just enter the WWE, she dismantled the reigning champion in minutes. Her precise martial arts-inspired style left the crowd in disbelief. But here's the twist. She refused every legacy storyline, every interview about her famous father. This wasn't about fame. This was about proving something far deeper. How did a woman who trained in secret become an overnight sensation? And why did WWE officials call her debut the most authentic thing they'd seen in years? The arena lights dimmed unexpectedly during Summer Showdown's co-main event. No music, no video package, just sudden darkness. Then came the sound of wooden training weapons clacking rhythmically from somewhere in the staging area. When the spotlight hit, there stood Raina Seagull in a plain black GI, already rolling her shoulders in warm-up motions. Like this was another training session. The announcers scrambled for information. No WWE tryout records. No Performance Center footage existed. Just tournament brackets listing her as a last-minute replacement. Bianca Blaze mocked her from the ring, flashing 3 championship belts and pointing at Raina's lack of wrestling gear. The crowd buzzed with confusion until Raina's first forearm strike snapped Bianca's head back, audibly. What followed wasn't a wrestling match, it was systematic dismantling. Raina transitioned between judo throws and Muay Thai clinches without pauses for crowd reaction. Her signature move, described later as the final kata, took exactly 2.7 seconds from setup to execution. A spinning elbow strike into a hip toss that landed Bianca ribs first across the ropes. The referee called for the bell at 3 minutes when Bianca couldn't stand after a liver kick. Triple H stood ringside shaking his head, then gestured for a contract before Raina had left the ramp. Producers confirmed they offered standard developmental deals first until Raina's agent produced tapes of underground fighting circuits in Thailand, where she'd gone 12-0 under pseudonyms. WWE upgraded to a main roster contract before her second match. What shocked insiders wasn't the victory, it was everything Raina rejected. No Seagull's daughter cheer-ins, no father-daughter retrospectives during entrances. When interviewers asked about training under Steven, she'd walk away mid-question. Social media exploded comparing her to UFC-era Ronda Rousey. But Raina never engaged, just posted time-stamped gym sessions showing 5 a.m. training alone. The turning point came during Bianca's post-match interview, where she accused Raina of stunt casting without breaking stride past the interview area. Raina picked up a folding chair and sent it skidding perfectly between Bianca and the interviewer, stopping exactly an inch from their feet. The silent precision made WWE's writers rethink entire feud structures planned for her. By No Mercy's rematch announcement, Raina had already shifted locker room dynamics. Veterans were caught studying her footage, adjusting their own strikes to seem sharper. The unspoken tension wasn't just about titles anymore. It was about wrestling itself being challenged by someone who treated it as combat sport first. Bianca entered their second match with taped ribs and a new strategy, but that only lasted until Raina caught her first running crossbody attempt midair, turning it into a German suplex without bending her knees. Crowd noise peaked not for finishers, but for subtle details like Raina checking Bianca's pulse-stirring pins like a corner doctor before coldly rolling her onto the injured side. When producers later asked Raina why she refused standard promo time, she reportedly said one sentence: "Action movies have scripts, fights don't." That philosophy reshaped WWE's approach to her entirely, setting up what would become their most unpredictable WrestleMania main event in a decade. Bianca Blaze looked different when she walked into No Mercy. The glittery capes and elaborate braids were gone, replaced by plain black tape wrapped around her fists and a determined scowl. She'd spent the weeks leading up to the rematch training with MMA fighters, flipping tractor tires at 5 a.m. and refusing all media. Everything about her now screamed one thing: revenge. The match was no disqualification from the start, which meant weapons were legal. Bianca wasted no time, swinging a steel chair directly at Raina's ribs within the first minute. The crowd gasped as Raina staggered, her first real sign of pain since debuting. But she didn't go down. Instead, she grabbed the chair mid-swing on Bianca's next attempt and wrenched it free with one sharp twist. Then she did something unexpected. She tossed it aside and gestured for Bianca to come at her barehanded. That set the tone for the next 18 minutes. Bianca threw everything she had: kendo sticks, a trash can lid, even a janitor's mop she pulled from under the ring. Raina took the hits, but kept countering with precise strikes, a spinning back fist here, a knee to the solar plexus there. At one point, Bianca set up a table at ringside, clearly planning to put Raina through it. But Raina reversed the momentum and suplexed Bianca onto the concrete instead. The sound of Bianca's back hitting the floor silenced the arena for a split second. What stood out wasn't just the violence, it was the contrast in styles. Bianca screamed and cursed with every move, while Raina stayed eerily quiet, her breathing measured even when blood dripped from her lip. When Bianca locked in her signature submission hold, twisting Raina's arm at a dangerous angle, the crowd expected a tap out. Instead, Raina used her free hand to dig her thumb into a pressure point on Bianca's wrist, forcing her to release the hold in pain. The turning point came when Bianca pulled out a bag of thumbtacks, pouring them onto the mat. Raina hesitated for the first time all night. Bianca charged, but Raina sidestepped and hooked her into a judo throw, sending Bianca back first onto the tacks. The roar from the crowd wasn't just show, it was respect. Both women were battered, but neither would stay down. When Raina finally pinned Bianca after a brutal liver kick, the arena gave them a standing ovation. Backstage footage later showed Bianca extending a handshake in the tunnel. Raina ignored it, but as she walked past, she gave a slight nod. That silent exchange said more than any promo could. Online, fans debated whether this was the best women's match of the year. But for Raina, it was something else. Proof she didn't need her father's name to earn her spot. The win also secured her a place in the Royal Rumble, and whispers started about a potential WrestleMania main event. One problem stood in her way: Becky Lynch. The former champion had been watching the match from a monitor backstage, cracking her knuckles. Raina might have survived No Mercy, but Becky was a different kind of challenge. And their clash at WrestleMania wouldn't just be about titles, it would be about legacies. The WrestleMania entrance ramp shook as Becky Lynch sprinted toward the ring, her signature manic energy electrifying the crowd. Raina Seagull stood motionless in her corner, exhaling slowly through her nose like someone preparing for a sparring session rather than the biggest match of her career. When the bell rang, Becky immediately tried to overwhelm her with rapid strikes, but Raina blocked each one with forearm guards, counting the strikes under her breath until she saw an opening. On the fifth punch, she caught Becky's wrist mid-swing and twisted into an armbar so fast, the referee nearly missed it. The match became a chess game, built on contrasts: Becky's unpredictable brawling versus Raina's rehearsed sequences. When Becky attempted her patented disarm her submission, Raina countered by digging her thumb into a nerve cluster on Becky's bicep, forcing her to break the hold. The turning point came when Becky went for a top rope leg drop. Raina rolled away at the last second and delivered a spinning heel kick that sent Becky crashing face first onto the turnbuckle. The crowd's reaction actually delayed the referee's count by 2 seconds. After Raina's moonsault secured the pin, the arena screens cut to Becky sitting against the barricade, nodding in reluctant respect. But what happened next surprised everyone. Instead of celebrating, Raina climbed the ropes and faced the crowd silently for nearly 30 seconds before speaking. "I was never trying to be the next Rousey, or the next Flair, or my father's daughter," she said, sweat dripping onto the microphone. "I just wanted to carve something with my own hands, something that lasts." Backstage footage later showed Raina receiving a text from Steven Seagal. "You are not my shadow, you are my better SS." She read it twice, then deleted it without reaction. This moment crystallized what made Raina's run unique, where other second-generation stars like Charlotte Flair had embraced lineage. Raina treated hers like background noise. WWE producers confirmed she'd vetoed every scripted mention of her father after her debut match. The match's placement second to last before the main event spoke volumes about Wee's confidence in Raina. Unlike many novelty acts, she wasn't positioned as a temporary attraction. Analysts noted her offense contained 0 flippy moves typical of new talent, just methodical strikes and submissions adapted from actual combat sports. Her post-WrestleMania media blackout continued the pattern: no talk show appearances, no brand endorsements, just a single Instagram post showing her lifting weights at 5 a.m. with the caption "Day 1. What came next remained uncertain. Becky shaking her hand backstage and Bianca now openly requesting another match, Raina's options multiplied. But the more intriguing possibility lurked in fan speculation: could her refusal to play the legacy game actually reinvent how WWE handles second-generation talent. For now, one thing was clear. The woman who entered WrestleMania as Steven Seagal's daughter left it simply as Raina, and that shift might prove more lasting than any championship reign. The raw sound of fists rapping heavily against pads echoed through an empty training facility 2 days later. No cameras, no fans, just Raina working combinations on a heavy bag as dawn light crept through the windows. Each strike landed with the same precision she'd shown against Becky, the same focus she'd maintained since that first surprise debut. Somewhere beyond the gym walls, the wrestling world kept turning. But in that moment, nothing existed except the routine, the craft, and the quiet certainty of someone who'd finally stopped being compared. Raina Seagull's story was never just about wrestling. It was about stepping out of someone else's shadow and refusing to be defined by a name. Weeks after WrestleMania, footage surfaced of her training alone at Dono Entourage. No cameras, just the sound of her fists hitting pads and feet sliding across the mat. No interviews, no victory tours, just work. Her journey asks a bigger question. What does it mean to earn your place without leaning on what came before? Let us know in the comments. Would you rather embrace a legacy or carve your own path? The choice defines more than careers. It defines lives.